Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is not on. Okay. Okay, may I continue? Okay, thank you. All right, so we've been sitting here going over March 9th, 2021. There was also some messages from March 8th, so the day before that you testified about. Do you recall those messages?
I do.
Okay. Do you recall, do you need to see those messages, or are you able to answer questions without seeing
I'd like
them?
to see them. Yes, please.
Okay, so these are going to be, let's see here. This is Exhibit 84. What did I do with it? Oh, let me pop it up here. Okay, Exhibit 84. Can you see it up on your screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, these are texts that are between James and Jennifer Crumbley, correct?
Correct.
Now, these texts are confirming that Jennifer is saying she's swamped at work and is going to have to not go to the barn that night, correct?
I'm sorry, do you have a copy I can, let's scroll.
I don't know what I did with my copy. Let me just, I'm
I
sorry.
don't have that.
Here it is, it's right
You're
here.
just scrolling too fast.
Okay.
Here you go, sorry.
No, it's fine.
This is 84.
Thank you.
Do you want me to take these, or do you want to keep those?
Unless you're going to refer to them, I don't need them.
I'm not sure if I will, so we'll find out. Okay, so on Exhibit 84, these are the texts from the day before. March 9th are the texts where Ethan is sending those things saying there's somebody slamming the door, things like that, right?
Correct.
Okay, these are from the day before on March 8th, yes?
Correct.
And you testified about these texts from March 8th on direct, and those were admitted through the prosecution.
Correct.
Okay, on March 8th, the parents are talking about Ethan at the beginning of the text messages. Is that a fair statement?
At 3:09, Jennifer asks, is Ethan going bowling?
Okay, so on page 386, she starts off with, is Ethan going bowling? He says IDK, which is I don't know. We can agree on that. Okay, what do you mean I don't know? Okay, goes down further, and Jennifer Crumbley on the 8th is asking at 3:12 in the afternoon, why isn't he home yet, correct?
That's correct.
At 3:12 and 51 seconds, she says he should be home by now, correct?
That's correct.
When she's saying he, we know that she's talking about Ethan, correct?
Correct.
And then it goes on at 3:12 and 56 seconds, she says freaking out, correct?
Correct.
And James responds to her at 3:13, so not even a minute later. He doesn't get home until 3:16, correct?
Correct. That's what he says, yes.
So these parents are communicating about when their son gets home down to the minute of when he can be expected, yes?
Correct.
Jennifer's text back to him is, I told you to pick him up because he's upset and I don't want him to do anything stupid, God damn it, correct?
Correct.
That's Jennifer saying that to James.
Correct.
On this date in March of 2021, Jennifer is working at Princeton at her job that's out in West Bloomfield, correct?
Correct.
And as far as you know, James at that time is a DoorDash driver working out in the Oxford area.
Correct.
And at that time, James was in between jobs. And if you don't know, please tell me, in between jobs and door dashing on the side as he was waiting for another job to come along, correct?
I do recall a text message about trying to be an interviewer or something like that between them, yes.
Okay, and in all fairness, if I ask you something you don't know, just let me know.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just trying to speed it up a little. Okay, so Jennifer's yelling at James, I don't want him to do anything stupid, goddammit. when she says that, it's fair to say you don't know what she means by I don't want him to do anything stupid, correct?
I have no idea, correct.
Okay, and James's response is, dude, chill, he is fine, and I'm trying to fucking work, correct?
Correct.
And Jennifer's texting back again, not even a minute later, does he have his phone? Yes?
Yes.
And James texts back right away, he won't answer while he's walking, I'll let you know the minute he walks in, correct?
Correct.
And Jennifer, within a minute of that, is sending another text. I'm serious, freaking out. Is he home yet? Those are the next two texts in succession, correct?
Correct.
It would appear from these text messages that Jennifer is voicing concern over Ethan.
In this one thread, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
and again, we're guessing if she's concerned about it, correct?
The language makes her like she's excited. I would say yes.
Okay, so the next day, when she's not responding to Ethan's text, again, we've gone over this ad nauseum. We don't know why she's not responding or what's going on in her head or if she's getting the messages, correct?
I don't know, yes.
You would agree with me in the text messages between Jennifer and James, and I'm sorry, they communicate way more by Facebook Messenger, correct?
Yes, they did.
Okay, and if I were to say that this is the printed out stack of Facebook messages between James and Jennifer, would that surprise you?
I don't, there were a lot of them. I can tell you that. I don't know what it would look like printed out yet. If you say that, I believe you.
Okay, approximately how many messages do you recall reviewing between them? Thousands?
Yes, thousands.
Okay, and in the messages, you read every one of these messages, correct?
Correct.
And when you were putting together information for the prosecution and for this investigation, you went through and found the evidence that's obviously brought into this trial.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The evidence that's been admitted, these texts are texts you found when you read the whole thing.
Correct.
Okay, and obviously, if there were texts between Jennifer and James that said something like, I think Ethan's psychotic, you would have brought that into this court, correct?
Just like the text we had where she said she was worried he was depressed, yes.
Okay, so, and I'm gonna get to the text about him being depressed later, but if you saw something in these text messages, like, I think our son is a serious threat, you would have brought that in here to show this jury.
I don't understand the question. I mean, this chat was brought in because for an unknown reason, she's very excited or doesn't want to do anything stupid. I don't know what he would do that's stupid.
Right, okay, so you don't know what he would do that's stupid. Aside from that though, my point is, we're not going to have this jury read all of the text and messages between James and Jennifer Crumbley, right?
Correct.
And in prepping for a trial, you bring in the ones that show the point you're trying to make, correct?
Correct.
So to do that, you read through all of them.
Correct.
And you pick out the ones that you think are important.
Correct.
And the ones that you've shown the jury are the most important ones you found.
Correct.
And we can agree that the balance of the messages, there's a lot more information that this jury is not going to see because it's not important to proving this case.
I'm sorry. What was give me the question again?
I'll ask a different question. It's fair to say throughout these texts, there are numerous conversations between James Crumbley and Jennifer Crumbley about their son.
Numerous?
Yes.
I wouldn't say numerous.
Okay, there's many conversations about, is he home yet from school?
There's some, yes.
Okay, there are conversations about him having to go to take headache medication.
I don't recall it. It might be that I recall headache medication. I remember him having a headache.
Okay, there are texts in here about what they're gonna eat for dinner with their son.
Okay,
Do you agree?
correct, yes,
Okay, there's texts about all kinds of things that a mom and a dad would talk about that are not important in terms of proving this case, correct?
correct,
Okay, and the most important information you found are the papers that have been admitted through the prosecutor.
correct.
Okay, and in the rest of the text messages, my point is, if you saw something that was more serious, like, I think Ethan's gonna shoot people, you would have brought that into court.
Just like the one, yes, we
Okay,
would have.
so when we're looking at the
No, you
evidence.
just need to object to the form of the question. She's characterizing that he brings it into court. He doesn't bring it into court.
He's the investigator. The prosecutor decides what they're asking to be admitted. So
Right, she's
He's
insinuating that he's taking certain things out and not telling anybody else. Everything's been turned over. I mean, it's the
I'm
same
not
argument.
insinuating that.
I'm starting to think it might be shorter to ask the jury to read that whole stack, right? Would that be shorter? Yeah.
Okay. My point and my question is, James and Jennifer discussed Ethan in other text messages.
Yes, they do.
And if there were text messages that showed evidence that either one of them believed Ethan was sick, mentally ill, anything along those lines, you would be pointing them out for this jury.
More than what we have, correct, yes.
Okay, what you have is the best evidence you could find after going through all of them.
That, like was said, that I turn over to the prosecution, yes.
Okay, and that's true too of the messages between Ethan and his friend, correct? In terms of the evidence you brought in, is the most important evidence you thought that was relevant to this case, correct?
Not entirely,
The same
no.
objection. It's the witness doesn't bring in evidence what he thinks is relevant. He's already testified. His job is to take the data, he extracts it from devices, and he passes along all the information.
And the prosecutor decides.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a technicality. They work together, but the prosecutor is the one who decides what might be relevant and what might be admissible.
Okay. When you went through the cell phone reports, you read all of the messages between the shooter and his friend, the friend that the prosecution has not named, but the one friend that's been an issue in this trial, correct?
Correct,
You read through, there were over 25,000 messages exchanged between the shooter and his friend that came off of the phones.
correct.
If I told you that this was the amount of text messages all printed out, would you disagree with that?
I would not.
Okay. And when you went through and pulled out, we can agree that there's lots of different topics discussed among these text messages.
Correct,
And the text messages that were brought in and entered as evidence were from this large stack of text as a whole.
what was presented, I'm sorry,
They're in these,
yes,
they're from here.
yes, there was more information that was turned over, but
Right. Okay, so my point is though, the pieces, the materials that have been admitted and that you've been testifying about are a part of all of the messages between the shooter and his friend.
correct.
Judge, if counsel wants to continue with this, that's admissible. And she has asked it for
I
not to
think we
be.
need to be really careful, okay? See, this is the conversation we had when we were picking the jury, that we are not trying the case of the shooter. So we've all endeavored to give you the things that are important to this case, that are not specific to the shooter's case. So, I don't want the jury to think that they are not allowed to see something, all right? So I don't want the jury to think that either side is hiding something because they're not. There have been evidentiary rulings made over the last year and a half in this case, and those are rulings that I've made after extensive research and briefing and all those different things with the prosecutor and defense counsel. So I don't want you to think anything's being hidden. That's not a fair, characterization. So.
Just, I'd ask the court to instruct counsel that you can't request certain things and then make this line of questioning without opening the door.
Well, I do not want to try the shooter's case. Okay, so let's not do that, right? Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we've talked about March 8th, and we've talked about texts from March 9th, yes?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and then you also testified about text messages that were sent on March 17th. Do you recall that?
I recall the date, yes.
And the overall point of those messages, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that on that date, the parents were at the barn together with their horses.
Those are the pictures, yeah. I don't remember if you have a copy of the text messages that were that day.
I can show you them if you need.
Can I make a request?
Yes.
Could you disassemble the Leaning Tower of Pisa?
Oh,
Because
sure.
Honestly, it looked like it was, I would hate you to have to reconstruct that. It just looked like it was gonna tip and then you'd have to try to re-put it together, and that would take, I'm hoping you're gonna be drinking a glass of wine in your sweatpants this weekend instead of reassembling that file. So
5 bottles
I just, it looked like it was gonna tip.
Okay, no, thank you.
All right.
All right. We talked about 3/8, we talked about 3/9. I'm going to 3/17. You asked me what text messages I'm talking about, and these are the exhibits that are around exhibits 83 through 86. Would you like me to bring you the text messages so that you can see those?
If you could, please, yes.
I think the March 17th starts with exhibit 85.
Okay, now on 85, we amended it, so there are texts that
I remember,
were,
yes, ma'am.
okay. And then I'm also gonna hand you right now what's on 86, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, the overall point of these text messages was to show that both of the parents were at the barn on March 17th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and on that day, while they were at the barn on March 17th, the shooter was trying to get a hold of them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and on that date, we have cell phone evidence that was admitted in Exhibit 83 that shows, and tell me if I need to slow down, I can break this down more. An hour after the shooter was texting Jennifer Crumbley, she called him and had a phone conversation within an hour, correct?
Correct.
And that phone conversation lasted less than a minute.
Correct. I remember.
And you have no idea what was said during that phone conversation.
No, I do not.
You have no idea what happened after Jennifer left the barn that day or James left the barn.
No, I do not.
You have no knowledge that the family, whether they were together that night or not, correct?
Correct.
You've done the best you can do to put together the information with materials you have.
Correct.
Okay, so we've talked about March 17th. Now I want to talk about March 20th. I'm sorry, the 19th and the 20th. On March 19th, there were text messages that were introduced, and tell me if you need them, they're exhibits 95 through 100, where there's a discussion about Ethan waking up and seeming hungover. Do you recall those?
I do, yes.
Would you like me to give you those?
I just like having a copy in my
Yeah,
hand or
that's-
on the screen either way. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's exhibit, this is 95. And I'm gonna put 95 up on the screen. So now we're talking about March. Sean, can you fix it?
And you need your laptop.
You just plug it back in. It just came.
Okay. All right, so we're looking at exhibit 95, okay, which has been admitted. And this is from March 18th, correct?
1995?
Yeah, okay. Exhibit 95 is from March 18th.
Look at it. It says
You know
March
what?
19th.
It goes over multiple days. Okay, may I please approach with 96 also?
Sure.
Okay, there's two that are in order and they both contain multiple days, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm sorry, this is a little bit confusing because we've got two different dates on two different exhibits. Okay, so I'm gonna go to 96 first. These texts actually come before 95. On this date, these are the texts where Ethan says, I just finished picking up the room. I cleaned until clothes started flying off the shelf. This stuff only happens when I'm home alone, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I am totally off. I am so sorry. March 17th. I need to be on exhibit 85.
85 is, it says is the thread from March 17th, 2021.
Yes, and 85 is one that I cannot display because it's been redacted. So I'm asking if the prosecution can please put 85 up on the screen.
Can you put redacted 85 on the screen?
I can, I just need a minute, John.
Okay, so on 85, this is on March 17th. This is the text where it started off, gonna get drunk and ride my horse. Jennifer Crumbley sent that at 1:30 p.m.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Mr. Keese, can you please scroll down? Okay, Jennifer Crumbley's indicating that afternoon, I hate my job. Can you bring out last, please? And I don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. Would you agree with that?
I don't know what she's referring to.
I don't either. Okay, can you go down, please? Okay, Jennifer Crumbley indicates at 4:02 that she's left work. Yes?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I might be going too fast.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, and then if we can go down more, please. That jumped exhibits.
That's the PowerPoint.
That's the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 85, can you go to the end of 85? Because it jumped to 86. Okay, so on 402, at 4:02, Jennifer Crumbley said that she left work.
Correct.
Okay, and the important thing about the 17th is showing that on that date, she was at the barn.
Correct.
And the next day is on the 18th, when we have the text messages about, I'm sorry, March 19th, exhibit 95. Do you have 95 in your hand?
I think he does.
I do not.
It would be easier probably just to submit the whole thing and go page numbers, but obviously, we're not gonna do that. I'm just having a difficult time with these pages. Do you have exhibit 95?
I do not.
I thought you did.
96.
Okay. I am so sorry that this is a mess. Okay. On March 19th, I've got it up on the screen. This is when Jennifer Crumbley and James Crumbley are talking about Ethan acting like or seeming like he was way hungover that day, correct?
Correct.
And it appears from the text that Jennifer is asking if he's okay. She says, "How is he?"
Correct.
Okay. Why is this doing this now? I am gonna kill myself. Okay. Okay. So he woke up acting like he had way too much to drink last night, complaining about a headache. That's what James said back to Jennifer, correct?
Correct.
And, okay, Your Honor, I need like a minute, and I'm so sorry. Now I've got exhibits that are doubled on the page, and I'm
Okay.
having a really tough time with the exhibits. I apologize to the jury. Can I please have a minute?
Okay, well, I'm probably not gonna excuse them because, are
Can
you
you
able to
help
do
me
it?
get this
Are you
back?
able to do it while they're here? Because
Yeah, I'm trying to just get it
next time I
done.
excuse them, I'm gonna send them home. I was hoping to finish this witness. I have this task completion thing. So I like to.
You know what, we can just leave it 2 pages on the screen. So right now it's got on 440, page 441's on the left, 442's on the right. Okay, so starting with 441, this is where the text says, "Well, he was really worked up and out of control, so I can see why." This is after they're talking about him waking up, correct?
Correct.
And Jennifer Crumbley texts, "All I know is he needs to eat, go to work hard, not complain, and he can get his stuff back," correct?
Correct.
And James ends up saying that Ethan asked, "Why was I in your room last night?"
Correct.
And Jennifer ultimately says she gave him a melatonin pill or a melatonin tablet.
Correct.
And James says to her, "I thought you gave him a Xanax last night."
Correct.
And it's evident from this that Ethan, or the shooter, their son, slept in their bed that night.
Correct.
And it appears that on March 19th, as the parents are talking, there was some kind of argument or something happened with their son the night before.
Correct.
And we don't know anything about what happened the night before on March 18th that preceded this whole conversation.
Correct.
It appears from the conversation on the 19th that something was taken away from him because it implies he can get his stuff back.
Judge, actually, in the form of the question, he can't testify what it implies or what it appears, only what's on the phone.
I'm sorry, I'll restate that.
Okay.
The text explicitly says if he does these things, he can get his stuff back.
Correct.
Okay. All right, now I'm gonna skip ahead to the 20th of March in 2021. On the 20th, we admitted exhibits 97 through 100.
The 96 are text messages dated March 20th. And the 97 starts with some pictures.
Okay, so 96 are the text messages that are up on the screen. Do you see those?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and it's on the 20th that the shooter is saying things like, "I cleaned up and clothes started flying off the shelf." He's making other claims that something is happening that's not normal, correct?
I would say yes.
Okay, he's making claims that things happen when he's home alone and trying to make his mother think things are flying off the shelf.
That's what he said, yes.
Okay. And you don't see any response from Jennifer Crumbley that day.
Correct.
And you showed the jury, we introduced and admitted all of the exhibits to show on that day she was at the barn again, correct?
Correct.
Now, you don't know what they talked about before or after she got home from the barn.
Correct.
All we know are that we have these couple of text messages making it sound like something is flying around in the house from
Again,
her
Judge,
son.
I don't know how often I can say this. Objection in the form of the question. He could testify to what he found on the device.
Yeah, he doesn't know beyond that, right?
Okay, I apologize.
He wasn't there. Yeah.
Okay, and so on the 20th, Mrs. Crumbley is obviously at the barn. So we've talked now about March 8th, March 9th, the 17th, 19th, and 20th, correct?
Correct.
So we can agree that from the 8th through the 20th, we're talking about a period in time that's about 12 days long.
Correct.
And we've seen bits of the 8th, the 9th, 17th, 19th, and 20th.
Correct.
Okay. In April 4th are the dates of the texts between the shooter and his friend, correct?
There was a lot of text messages. I believe they texted on that date.
Okay. And I believe it is Exhibit 101. Okay. I have 101 on the screen. Do you recall these?
Correct. Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, these texts on April 4th are between, we agree that they are between the shooter and his friend.
That's correct.
This is not a group chat where Mrs. Crumbley is on it.
That's correct.
There is no evidence that these texts were ever forwarded to Jennifer Crumbley.
Correct.
There is no evidence to show that Jennifer Crumbley ever saw these text messages.
Correct.
For example, there isn't a text like, oh my gosh, you should see what our son sent to his friend today. There's nothing along those lines, correct?
Well, not in this group. Are you talking about this chat still?
I'm just saying in general, if you found evidence that Jennifer Crumbley saw these texts, that would be important.
If she saw, I would say yes.
Okay, and we don't have anything to show she saw them.
Not that was on the phone, no.
So on this text thread between the shooter and his friend, he talks about how he hears people talking and he sees someone in the distance, correct?
That's correct.
There's no response from his friend.
Correct.
We don't know if his friend saw those texts and didn't respond, or if his friend didn't see those texts and the shooter just kept texting, right?
They came in rapid order, so yeah, they were one after another, correct.
Okay, so this is around, so 11:56, and then we go down 11:57, says, it's at the point that I'm asking to go to the doctor. Okay, that's one of the texts that you testified about, correct?
Correct.
There are not any texts where the shooter is saying anything to his mom and dad about, I want to go to the doctor.
Correct.
While the shooter is saying this to his friend, we don't have any evidence that it's true, whether the shooter really wanted to go to a doctor or not, correct?
I mean, he said it a couple times. They talked about everything.
And all the times that he talked about it, this jury is seeing, you've brought that in. Well, you haven't brought that in. I'm sorry. I keep misstating that. The evidence in this case is showing the jury what you gleaned from your investigation.
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Okay. In the investigation, there is not you don't have any text messages where the shooter is saying to his mother anything about going to the doctor for hallucinations or anything along those lines.
That's correct.
Okay, if that did exist, the jury would be seeing that.
That would have been turned over to the prosecution, yes.
Okay, so in this case, when the shooter says, it's at the point I'm asking to go to the doctor, my mom left when I told her, again, you have no idea if Mrs. Crumbley ever saw these texts between the shooter and his friend.
Correct.
And we can agree, we don't have any more context than just this text thread that exists between these two.
Judge, again, counsel is getting very close to running afoul of the motion that she filed to preclude evidence, Judge. There is a lot of context, but counsel
Your
requested
Honor,
motions.
this is making it sound like there's evidence being hidden, and there's not.
Okay, well, I've said there's no evidence being hidden. There's no evidence being hidden. But, okay, so ask the next question.
Okay,
You're not aware of any communication between the shooter and his mother?
No,
Asking for.
correct.
okay. And when the shooter texts his friend, I was thinking of calling 911 so I could go to the hospital and text, I need help. There are no 911 calls, correct?
Correct.
There are no text messages to Mr. or Mrs. Crumbley saying those same types of things.
Correct.
And when he says, I am going to ask my parents to go to the doctor tomorrow or Tuesday again, we obviously don't know if that's true.
Correct.
And when he says, but this time I'm going to tell them about the voices, okay, that's the next text, right?
Yes.
Okay. In his words, he did not send that information to his mom and dad as far as you can see from his messages with them.
Correct.
So when we're talking about this whole text thread, where at the end he says, like, I am mentally and physically dying, you also don't have any evidence that the friend who received these showed them to the shooter's mom, correct?
Correct.
There's no evidence that his friend did anything with these text messages beyond the fact that they exist.
Correct.
We don't know if...
Judge, we just need to clarify. There's thousands and thousands of text messages. She needs to be more specific. Is she asking to comment on the 20-page text thread? Is she asking to comment on certain days? It isn't fair to the witness who reviewed all this information.
Okay, well, is there any evidence that the friend shared anything with the parents? I don't.
Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you.